It wasn't the sound of the dripping faucet that got me. It was the chilling, clinical way my son, Jax, avoided my gaze when I asked him to call a plumber. He looked about as guilty as a cat that swiped the cream, and honestly, that should have been my first beige flag, a tiny, off-key note in the symphony of my perfect suburban life. My daughter, Chloe, only got sussier when I mentioned the damp spot blooming on the ceiling. A spot that looked like a nasty bruise right above my favorite antique hutch. I'm telling you, the vibe in this house was straight up off, and I knew in my gut that this leak wasn't just about old pipes. This was about something way more sinister, something that was living rent-free in the dark corners of my kids' hearts. Before we dive deep into this rabbit hole, do me a solid, honey, and hit that subscribe button right now.
Seriously, smash it!
You don't want to miss the tea I'm about to spill on how a sweet, retired lady like me figured out she was married to a murder plot hatched by her own flesh and blood. Trust me, the ending? It's bussin'. I've always kept a tight ship here in this house on Maple Avenue. 40 years. 4 decades of my life poured into these walls. From the freshly painted greige in the living room to the cozy, lived-in feel of the kitchen. Every corner is me. My sanctuary. My husband, bless his heart, passed away 5 years ago, and for a while I was completely cooked. Done. But you dust yourself off, right? You keep it moving. My 2 kids, Jax and Chloe, they were my whole Roman Empire. My rock. My everything. Jax, my eldest, he's a big, strong guy, works in construction, always hustling. He's been crashing back here for about a year since his lease was up. The truth is, lately he's been distant. Like, physically present, but mentally on a whole different planet. He used to be so chill, always ready to crack a joke or help me with groceries. Now, he's always glued to his phone, and when I ask him how his day was, it's all one-word answers. It's been rough. No cap. Then there's my sweet Chloe. 34 and back home after a messy divorce that left her completely wrecked. She came back looking like a ghost, all pale and exhausted. She spends most of her time locked in her old room, says she's trying to find herself and process the trauma. I get it. Relationships are savage sometimes. I really do. So I just gave her space. I'd make her favorite comfort food, my famous cheesy mac, and leave it outside her door. I was just being a mom, you know, opening my arms and my home, asking for no shade or questions in return. My days had fallen into this predictable, low-key rhythm. Wake up at 6, make coffee in my chipped world's best mom mug, water the hydrangeas, watch the morning news, and then wait. Wait for Jax to come home. Wait for Chloe to come out of her room. We'd eat dinner together, a quiet, almost silent affair, and then everyone would retreat to their corners. It wasn't the vibrant family life I remembered, but hey, it was stable. It was safe. Or so I thought. Then came the leak. It wasn't just a simple drip, drip, drip. It was this weird, irregular plopping sound that kept me up. The next morning, there it was. A water stain spreading on the dining room ceiling right under the upstairs bathroom. That bathroom, mind you, was completely renovated just 18 months ago. Jax was the one who insisted on redoing all the plumbing. He managed the whole thing, told me to just chill, and that he'd handle the workers, the costs, the whole shebang. He was so adamant about it. I called him at work, and his voice on the phone was instantly tight. "Mama, just call a plumber, all right? I'm in a jam with a concrete pour. Can't ditch my guys. But Jax, baby, we just had the whole thing redone. Shouldn't we call the company that did the original work? Maybe it's a warranty thing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. A tense silence hung there for a beat. No, don't do that. Just call someone new. I'll text you the number of a guy. He's dope." That was the moment the first wave of Delulu hit me. Why the hard pass on the original contractor? It felt sus, no cap. But Jax was my son, so I swallowed my doubt. Half an hour later, I got the text. "Call Manuel. He's solid. Tell him Jax sent you." Manuel the plumber showed up exactly an hour later. Mid-50s, kind eyes, the kind of guy who looks like he knows his stuff. I showed him the damp spot, and he did that professional, squinty-eyed frown thing. "Need to check the upstairs fixture first, ma'am, and then the main pipes in the basement. Access from the kitchen, right?" "Yep, go right ahead, Manuel. Make yourself at home." He went downstairs to the basement, and the house fell silent, except for the faint, metallic clanking sounds of his tools echoing from below. I went back to the kitchen, poured a fresh cup of coffee, and sat at the dining room table, keeping an eye on the stain. I remember looking at the clock. It was 11:05 a.m. Chloe was definitely still asleep. She had been staying up until 4 a.m. every night. I could hear her pacing. I was so worried about my little Pookie. The clanking stopped. About 45 minutes later, Manuel reappeared. But he wasn't the calm professional guy who walked in. His face was gray, his hands were trembling, and he looked like he'd just seen a ghost. He carefully placed his toolbox on the floor, and I instantly felt that knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. "Are you done, Manuel? Did you find the leak?" I asked, wiping my hands on my apron. He looked at me, not at the stain, not at the pipes, but right into my eyes. His voice was a low, urgent whisper. "Mrs. Dawson, I need you to sit down. This is not a plumbing problem. Someone has installed something gnarly down there, something that is not a pipe." My heart went into overdrive. "What are you talking about? Are you saying someone broke in? A squatter?" He shook his head, leaning in closer, his voice dropping even lower. "No, ma'am. I don't think it was a stranger. I think someone who knows this house real well put it there, and it's connected to your ventilation system. Specifically, it leads right to your bedroom vents." The mug I was holding clattered against the porcelain saucer. "My bedroom? What is it, Manuel? What did you find?" "It's a delivery system, Mrs. Dawson," he said, the words cutting through the silence like shards of ice. "A system designed to release substances into the air, substances that could be making you sick, very sick. And from what I saw, this thing is programmed to keep running. This is no cap. You are in deep water, ma'am." I just stared at him, my mind completely numb. The fatigue, the headaches, the constant foggy feeling I'd been attributing to just getting older. It all suddenly clicked. A horrific, perfect piece of a puzzle snapping into place. "No, not my children." "You're being delulu," I whispered, shaking my head violently. "They would never hurt me." Manuel stood up, his face a mask of urgent concern. "I know this is mid-news, ma'am, but I need you to come with me. You have to see it for yourself. Just 5 minutes. If you still think I'm wrong, I'll walk out and you'll never hear from me again. But if you see what I saw, you need to grab your stuff and get out of this house immediately. Don't say a word to Jax or Chloe. Don't tell them a thing." I looked at the stairs where my daughter was sleeping. Then I looked at the dark maw of the basement door. My children were trying to murder me. My children. This was the moment my world shattered into a million little poisoned pieces. And all I could do was nod, a silent, terrified agreement. I followed Manuel into the mouth of the beast, the basement door, feeling like I was walking into my own funeral. The air down there was always a little musty, heavy with the scent of aged cardboard and concrete, but this time, it felt different. It felt thick, almost toxic. Every creak of the wooden stairs beneath my feet was like a drumbeat of dread. I clutched the flashlight he'd handed me. My hand was slick with sweat, but my mind was screaming. This has to be some kind of elaborate prank. This is cray-cray. We navigated past the washer and dryer, the old Christmas decorations I hadn't touched in years, and the boxes of baby clothes I was saving for a someday that felt like it would never come now. Manuel, he walked with a purpose, his shoulder tense. He led me to the far corner, tucked behind the monstrous furnace that hummed quietly, oblivious to the drama unfolding. This spot was always low-key dusty. You had to practically crawl back here. "Right here, Mrs. Dawson," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the furnace's low drone. He shone his light on a section of the wall where the regular copper plumbing pipes were running. But snuggled right up against them like a parasite was something that made my stomach churn. It was a small metal box, about the size of a shoebox, painted a dull gray to blend in with the furnace's ductwork. But it wasn't the box itself that made my blood run cold. It was what was connected to it. Thin, clear plastic tubes, the kind you'd see in a hospital, specialized and clean, ran from the box and snaked upwards. "This is it," Manuel said. Aiming the beam straight at the box, I moved closer, fighting the urge to vomit. What is this thing? The box had several compartments. Through the clear plastic, I could see thick, oily-looking liquids. They weren't just water. They were different hues. A sickly yellow, a murky green, and a dark, almost black sludge. "It was sus AF. These are reservoirs," Manuel explained, his voice flat. "And these tubes here." He traced a line with the flashlight beam. They don't connect to the drainage system. See how they run up? They bypass the water lines completely. They connect directly to your HVAC ducting. My breath hitched. HVAC, the ventilation system, the air I was breathing every day. And where exactly does this air go? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I followed the runoff, he said. The main line goes to the upstairs floor, but this small, dedicated branch line right here that goes directly to the vent in your master bedroom. It's a closed-loop system, Mrs. Dawson. High grade. Not something you pick up at Home Depot. No cap. I reached out and touched one of the plastic tubes near the metal box. It was warm. It was running. I yanked my hand back as if I'd been burned. The liquids. You said they were substances? I pressed. I'm a plumber, not a chemist, he stressed. But I've seen enough weird stuff in basements to know what isn't normal. These don't smell like solvents or cleaning agents. They have a subtle, sweet chemical smell. Something designed to be inhaled without noticing. Gradual, long-term effects. Think chronic fatigue, compromised immunity, organ failure over time. A slow fade-out. The memory of the bathroom renovation hit me like a physical blow. The 3 weeks the workers were here. Jack's on site every single day, telling me to just chill in the backyard, insisting he had to supervise the drywall. He was so focused. So meticulous. Now I knew why. Jack's, I choked out. He works construction. He knows HVAC systems. He knows pipes. And then there was Chloe. My quiet, grieving daughter. Chloe studied chemistry, Manuel, I whispered, the words tasting like poison. She got a degree in organic chemistry before she started working in that lab downtown. She would know how to mix this stuff. She would know the dosage. We both stood there in the chilling silence, the two of us, strangers bonded by the sight of my children's meticulous plot. The puzzle pieces weren't just fitting anymore. They were locking into place with a terrifying, airtight finality. Ma'am, look here. Manuel pointed the light at a small LED screen on the device. It was displaying a graph and a series of blinking numbers. This is the dosing mechanism. It's on a timer. See this line here? It shows a gradual increase in concentration. It's not a one-and-done job. This is an escalating program. Escalating? What does that mean? It means whoever set this up wasn't in a hurry. They wanted the symptoms to look like natural aging. But if this line keeps going up, your exposure is getting higher and higher. You're talking about a timeline that's getting short. My knees felt weak. I braced myself against a stack of brittle boxes. How short? Manuel looked at the screen, then at me. I'm just a plumber, Mrs. Dawson. But if I had to guess, the current concentration is dangerous. Another couple of months at this rate, and you're in a life or death situation. You're cooked. My beautiful, quiet home. A death trap. My loving children. My would-be murderers. Why? I kept coming back to that. The sheer, cold-blooded effort of it all. It wasn't a crime of passion. This was premeditated. This was savage. We have to call the police, I said, trying to find my voice. Manuel shook his head immediately. No, not yet. Not from here. Think, Mrs. Dawson. These kids, your kids, they are smart. They planned this for months. They know their mom. If you call the cops from this house, or if they see you talking to me, they'll know you're onto them. They'll panic. And people who panic, they do desperate things. They could disable the system, frame me, or worse, they could eliminate the witness. He meant me. He grabbed my arm firmly, pulling me back towards the stairs. We need to go. Right now. You can't confront them. You can't even look sus. Just a bag, a wallet, keys. We're getting you out of here, and then we call the police from a safe location. Do you understand? You play it cool like nothing happened. You're just taking a quick trip to the store. We scrambled up the stairs. I could hear a muffled sound from upstairs. Chloe was stirring. The thought of facing her, of seeing the girl I raised, knowing the dark secret she carried, almost made me buckle. We reached the kitchen. Manuel's kind eyes were sharp and focused. Your keys. Your purse. Go. I grabbed my bag from the hook by the door, my hands moving on autopilot. I looked at the basement door one last time. It was an image. The quiet gray box, the oily liquids, the thin, clear tubes that was now etched onto my soul. My life here was over, but my fight, that was just beginning. I looked at Manuel, and a new kind of resolve, cold and hard as steel, settled in my gut. Let's roll, I said. The the suburban slang feeling oddly appropriate for the gravity of the situation. I need an Addy where they won't find me. The fear that had been paralyzing me suddenly turned into a shot of pure adrenaline. Manuel's face, etched with urgency, was the only thing keeping me grounded. Chloe was definitely up. I heard the soft click of her bedroom door opening upstairs. Time was a luxury I didn't have. Store, I muttered, trying to sound normal as I grabbed my car keys, the heavy keychain feeling strangely comforting. I need milk. Manuel picked up his toolbox, his movements slow and deliberate, playing the role of the departing plumber. The pressure's still a little high, ma'am. Should equalize in a few hours, no cap. He spoke loud enough for anyone upstairs to hear, giving us a plausible cover. He moved toward the front door, pausing just long enough for me to slip past him. Thanks, Manuel. I'll call you if it gets sus again, I replied, forcing a lightness into my voice that felt completely alien. I walked out the front door, not running, not speeding up, just the normal, slow pace of a retired woman heading to the grocery store. I got into my sedan, a sensible beige SUV I'd always loved, and started the engine. I pulled out of the driveway, checking my rearview mirror. The house looked exactly the same, a picture of American suburban serenity. It was a perfect camouflage for the horror show playing out inside. Manuel was waiting 3 blocks away, leaning against his work van, scrolling on his phone like he was just waiting for a text. I pulled up beside him, and he tossed his toolbox onto the passenger seat of my car before sliding into the back. Drive. Head west. We need distance, and we need to talk before we call anyone, he instructed, his voice low and firm. As I drove, the reality of my situation finally hit me. I had just been ghosting my own children. I had left my home, everything I owned, and the 2 people I loved most in the world were back there, plotting my slow demise. The tears came, hot and fast, blurring the highway signs. You okay, Mrs. Dawson? Manuel asked softly from the back. No, Manuel. I'm not okay. I'm cooked. My kids, they're trying to ice me. For what? The question ripped out of me like a scream. We need to focus on safety first, ma'am. Then we find out the why, he insisted. I pulled up the name I gave you. My real name is David. I'm an independent contractor. I do a lot of specialized work, not just leaks. And when I saw that setup, I knew it was way beyond a standard plumbing issue. I took a few photos, discreetly, before I came upstairs. He pulled out his phone and showed me a few close-up shots of the device. The liquids, the blinking timer, the plastic tubing connected to the metal ductwork. Seeing it on the screen, detached from the terrifying reality of the basement, only made it more real. This system is high-grade. Whoever built this had money, time, and serious chemical knowledge. We're talking professional, Mrs. Dawson. This isn't just a kitchen sink drama. This is savage. My children have access to both, I whispered, the painful realization sinking in. Jax, the construction, the planning. Chloe, the chemistry, the execution. We can't make any accusations yet. We need proof and a safe place. I know an old pad, an empty rental unit my sister owns in Phoenix. It's totally off the grid. No one will know the Addy. We drove for hours, heading east out of our familiar Arizona suburb. As the landscape shifted to red rock and dust, my mind worked furiously, piecing together every beige flag I'd ignored. Jax's sudden wealth. He'd bought a dope new truck he claimed was financed by big construction bonuses. Chloe's increasing dependence, the way she'd clung to me, saying she needed her mom right as my symptoms intensified. The whole narrative they had sold me was a Delulu scam. We stopped at a cheap motel well outside the city limits. I used the landline, not my cell phone, which David warned could be tracked, to call the local police department back home. David stood right next to me, scripting what I should say. I need to report a possible threat to my safety. I was informed by a plumber, David Manuel, that an illegal device has been installed in my home at 128 Maple Avenue, connected to my ventilation system. He suspects it is dispensing a toxic substance. The dispatcher sounded bored. Ma'am, are you currently at the residence? No, I'm not. I left immediately. And you're stating your children are involved? I hesitated. Even now, the words felt impossible. I suspect they might have information, but I need someone to secure the evidence. The device is located in the basement, behind the furnace, connected to the HVAC duct. The dispatcher promised to send a patrol car for a wellness check, and to file a report. It felt completely inadequate for the situation, but it was all I could do. "That's all for now," David said as I hung up. "They'll send a patrol. They'll look for a device. They won't find anything if your kids are smart. And they are. Why won't they find it? Because they've had 5 hours. That system is designed for gradual poisoning, which means it's easily disabled or removed. They'll likely check the basement, see no obvious leak, and leave a note. Your kids will know then that someone was here. They'll know the plan is compromised." Panic flared again. "So I'm just supposed to wait for them to find me?" David sat across from me on the uncomfortable bed. "No, we're going to be smart. We have 2 things the police don't have right now: motive and proof of the system's existence, not just my word. I have the photos, and you have the access. We need to figure out the why first. Why would your kids risk their entire lives for this?" The answer was painfully obvious, though I hadn't dared to voice it until now. The house, the money, my husband, their father, passed away without a will. Everything is in my name. The house alone is worth a fortune. They get it all when I die. "Okay," David nodded, his eyes narrowed in thought. "Motive, inheritance. That's dope. Now the revenge part you wanted. This is where we stop being the victims and start playing their game." "What are you suggesting, David? We call the FBI?" "Not yet. We need an airtight case. Your kids are going to think you're still in the area, or maybe just out of town. They'll be looking for you. We need to make them think they've won first. We need to disappear completely and then set a trap." He began to outline a plan, a strategy that sounded like something straight out of a Hollywood flick, not the reality of a grandmother. It involved fake travel plans, a burner phone, and me adopting a completely new persona. I was supposed to become a ghost, a presence that only they would fear. We need to give the police enough evidence to get a search warrant. But first, we need to gather that evidence without getting killed. You're going to use their own arrogance against them. Mrs. Dawson, they think you're old, they think you're weak, and they think you're Delulu. I looked down at my shaking hands, then back at David. The image of the gray box in the basement flashed in my mind. The betrayal was a fire that had burned away all the fear, leaving behind only a cold, hard ember of determination. "They're about to learn that this old lady is savage," I said, my voice quiet, but firm. "Let's go to Phoenix. Let's make them sweat. I want them to be the ones who feel cooked." David drove us east, deep into the heart of Phoenix, far from the manicured lawns and familiar vibes of our suburb. We pulled up to a modest, completely nondescript apartment complex, the kind of place where everyone keeps to themselves, which was dope for us. David's sister's pad was on the 3rd floor. It was basic, furnished with nothing but the essentials, and absolutely clean of any digital footprint that could link back to me. "This is our war room for now, Mrs. Dawson," David said, handing me a small, inexpensive phone, a burner. "No one calls this number but us. You are a ghost to the outside world." I felt a strange sense of liberation in the quiet apartment. No more tiptoeing around my own kids, no more pretending I wasn't constantly exhausted. The fake life was over. The only thing that mattered now was proving their guilt and making them pay for this savage betrayal. "They're going to notice I'm gone by now," I said, looking out the window at the unfamiliar cityscape. "They'll be stressed." "They'll be more than stressed," David corrected, plugging his main phone into a charger and pulling out a small laptop. "They're going to be cooked. They'll go through the 5 stages of grief, but their stages will be panic, search, denial, more panic, and then Delulu." He accessed a private email account he'd set up for me. "I sent them a message from your personal account before we left. I didn't mention the device, just something vague." "What did you tell them?" I kept it simple. I wrote, "Kids, I needed some time to myself. Don't worry, I'm just taking a trip. I'll be in touch." I sent it 5 hours ago. They've definitely seen it. He opened a page that showed real-time police activity around my house. The patrol car came and went just like I thought. They didn't see any obvious leak, and didn't have a warrant to rip open the walls. They left a note for the homeowner. So Jax and Chloe know a plumber was there, and then I vanished. "They'll connect the dots," I mused. My mind was suddenly sharp, focused, no longer dulled by the poison. "They'll think David told me everything." "Exactly. And if they think I talked, they'll be watching for me too. But their number one priority is figuring out where you went and what you know, David confirmed. We spent the next day planning. David, who revealed he had a military background and had often handled security consulting on the side, was dope at strategy. My revenge wouldn't be about sudden violence, but about psychological warfare. I was going to turn my children's smug confidence into cold, paralyzing fear. We need to feed them bait, I decided. A distraction that will make them reveal their hand. No cap. We need something that forces them to act, not just wait. David agreed. What's their biggest concern besides you being alive? The house. And their money. The house is the key. They were so close to getting everything. They need the deed to pass. And that requires my death certificate. Now they have no timeline. Perfect. We hit them where it hurts. The inheritance. We're going to make them think you changed your will, David said, a slow, calculated smile spreading across his face. He pulled up a template for a legal document. This isn't real, but it needs to look legit. We draft a fake addendum to your will, dated yesterday. It states that due to recent concerns about their judgment and financial stability, you have put the house and all assets into an irrevocable trust, managed by a third party, a fake lawyer. Of course, and that they can only access funds upon their 65th birthdays. And only then if they can prove responsible behavior. 65? That's forever, I scoffed, feeling a dark satisfaction. It will drive them cray-cray. That's the point. It gives them two choices. Wait decades for their fortune, or find this new will and destroy it. And to do that, they'll have to break into the one place they think holds the key to the estate, your personal safe. My personal safe was an old metal box tucked under the bed in the master bedroom, the same room they'd been poisoning. I'd kept jewelry and old letters in it, but never anything of real value. They knew it was there. How do we get the fake will into the safe? We don't. We get them to believe it's there, David replied. We call the police again, but this time it's about a break-in at the house, and we make sure to mention the safe. I made the call, using the burner phone. I sounded panicked, like an old woman whose house had been violated. I just got back into town. I'm calling from a different number. I think someone broke into my home. Nothing seems missing. But my personal safe under my bed is ajar. My will, my last wishes were in there. The police promised to send a detective this time, given the suspicious nature of the initial report and the now reported break-in. David and I knew the drill. The police would find the safe open, because I'd made sure it was slightly ajar before I left, and they'd find nothing inside. But the simple mention of the safe being empty would plant the seed in Jack's and Chloe's minds. The will is missing. I sent one last, vague, chilling text from my old number, which David had brought with him, along with my wallet. I knew they'd been checking my texts, hoping for an Addy. The text read, "I'm not as delulu as you thought. You should check the safe." Then, I powered down my old phone for good. That was the bait. The message was designed to be ambiguous. Did I mean I knew about the poisoning, or just that I'd changed my mind about the inheritance? The ambiguity was the poison now, making them doubt everything. David turned on the news channel. Our local station was running a small segment on the reported home invasion at 128 Maple Avenue. They showed a quick shot of the front door. The anchor said, "Police are investigating and believe the homeowner. Mrs. Evelyn Dawson may have interrupted the suspects. They'll be watching the news." "No cap," I said, a grim satisfaction settling over me. "They'll be shaking in their boots right now, wondering if I just got woke to the inheritance, or if I know about the basement." "Doesn't matter," David said, handing me a glass of water. "They'll think the original will, the one that leaves them everything, is gone, and this fake new trust document is out there somewhere. They'll panic. They'll need to find that new document and destroy it. And they'll start by tearing that house apart, looking for where their new will is hidden." My revenge wasn't just about justice. It was about watching the people who tried to kill me destroy their own sanctuary, their own sense of safety, over a piece of paper that didn't even exist. I was finally in my bag, focused, ready to play the game on my terms. "Now, David," I said, taking a slow sip of water, "let's figure out how to get a camera into that house. I want to watch them when they finally crash out." The Phoenix apartment had become our command center. David, who was quickly proving to be dope AF at covert ops, managed to procure some seriously sophisticated gear. Our immediate goal was to get visual confirmation of the destruction of the toxic device, and more importantly, to witness my children's desperate actions. We needed to push them until they crashed out. "They'll be working with maximum paranoia right now," David explained, setting up a miniature high-definition camera no bigger than my thumb. "They know the police were there, they know the safe was opened, and they know you sent a message. They'll assume the original will is missing, and you've exposed their inheritance scam." "But they still don't know I know about the basement," I stated, a cold certainty in my voice. "Exactly. That's our ace. They think the device is gone. They think they're in the clear on that front. They'll focus entirely on finding this new will and destroying it." David's plan for surveillance was gnarly. He used his access as a contractor to find a common high-traffic utility box near my property line, one that housed an optical fiber relay. He set up the small camera inside a fake, weather-worn bird feeder, positioning it to capture the front door and the driveway, giving us a perfect view of anyone coming and going. The best part? He had a colleague, a tech whiz, who owed David a favor, remotely hacking into the ring system on my neighbor's house across the street, allowing us to get a much closer, albeit slightly sus, view of my living room window. We watched for hours. Nothing. The house was silent. They were being careful. "They're in their bag right now, planning," David murmured, sipping a lukewarm coffee. "They know the cops are on alert. They won't rush." Finally, around midnight, movement. Jax's truck, the dope new one he claimed to have bought with his construction bonuses, pulled into the driveway. He got out, moving quickly and scanning the street. He looked totally different. Not my carefree son, but a man completely stressed. He was practically vibrating with tension. He didn't go in the front door. He headed straight to the garage, disappearing into the house. 10 minutes later, Chloe's car, which she'd been using constantly, pulled up. She rushed inside, clutching a large, empty duffel bag. "Why the duffel bag?" I asked, leaning closer to the laptop screen. "In case they find the will and need to destroy it off-site," David hypothesized. "Or more likely, they're planning to take all their valuable stuff and ghost if this gets any hotter." The feed from my neighbor's hacked camera was shaky, but we could see into the living room. Chloe was immediately on her phone, pacing. Jax was heading to the kitchen, then disappearing toward the basement door. "He's checking on the device," I breathed out, my heart pounding. Jax reappeared in the living room after about 15 minutes. He spoke to Chloe, his hands gesturing wildly. I could imagine the conversation. "The device is gone. We're clean. Now focus on the will." Then, the frantic search began. It was hard to watch, yet utterly compelling. The children I had raised, the ones who were supposed to inherit my kindness and love, were tearing apart the home I built. Chloe started with the bookshelves, yanking out volumes, shaking them, and tossing them onto the floor. She was usually so neat. The sight of the mess she was making felt like a violation. Jax was more systematic. He was going through the master bedroom, lifting the mattress, emptying drawers, searching for the safe's contents. "They're convinced I hid the new will somewhere obvious," I said, a grim satisfaction washing over me. Suddenly, Jax moved the bedside table and yanked out the empty safe. He screamed, a sound we couldn't hear but could clearly see from the contortion of his face. He slammed the safe against the wall. "He's cooked," David commented. The reality of the missing inheritance just hit him. Chloe rushed in, speaking quickly, desperately. Jax pointed at the empty safe, then back at the text I'd sent. "You should check the safe." They were trapped in their own paranoia. The next morning, the search intensified. They had moved to the attic, then to the crawl spaces. They were searching for a piece of paper that didn't exist, all because of a text I sent on a burner phone. Then, the final push. David sent a short, untraceable text message to Jax's phone. A ghost message from a new lawyer he'd created, attorney Marcus Thorne. The text read, "Evelyn has been informed. The trust is irrevocable. Thorne." Less than 5 minutes later, Jax walked out onto the driveway. The camera feed showed him clutching his phone, his face pale. He looked utterly defeated. He turned to Chloe, who had followed him out. They spoke for a minute, their shoulders slumped. "This is it," David whispered. They think the game is over. They think they've lost the money. Then Jax did the thing I was waiting for. He walked to the storage shed in the backyard, opened it, and pulled out 2 large, heavy garbage bags. He and Chloe carried the bags quickly back into the house. He's taking the device out of the house, David stated, his voice tense. They know the jig is up. They're going to dump the evidence and run. This was the proof we needed. If they were innocent, why were they disposing of garbage in the middle of the night? Now we call the police, Mrs. Dawson, David said, reaching for the burner. We call the narcotics division this time. The break-in was just a decoy. We report something major. Illegal chemicals being moved from the residence. I picked up the phone. My voice was calm, utterly composed. Hello, I need to report the illegal disposal of hazardous chemical waste at 128 Maple Avenue. My children, Jax and Chloe Dawson, have been moving large bags of what I believe are toxic materials from my home. I suspect a clandestine operation connected to a major drug ring. The lie was designed to grab the attention of the right division, a narcotics task force. The police would move fast. 5 minutes later, David and I watched the screen. The quiet street was suddenly ablaze with blue and red lights. 2 unmarked black SUVs and 2 patrol cars swarmed the house. The sight of the police cars pulling up to my once perfect home was my moment of triumph. It was bussin'. Jax and Chloe rushed out of the front door, looking like startled deer, carrying the heavy garbage bags. They stopped dead in their tracks as the police officers, some with vests and serious gear, rushed the house. The officers immediately focused on the heavy bags. On the screen, I watched as Jax, my eldest, dropped his bag in terror. An officer immediately opened it. A thick, clear plastic tubing, the kind I saw in the basement, spilled out, along with pieces of the gray metal box. Jax and Chloe were immediately cuffed. Jax looked straight into the camera, not knowing it was my neighbor's, his eyes wide and vacant. He was cooked and he knew it. My beautiful children, arrested on the front lawn of the home they tried to poison me out of. It's done, Mrs. Dawson, David said, his voice gentle. But I wasn't done. I was just getting started. I looked at the screen, at the raw, panicked faces of the children who had tried to erase me. No, David, I corrected, a slow, grim smile spreading across my face. The arrests are the main event. Now it's time for the after-party. We need to make sure they know who exactly won this war. The sight of Jax and Chloe being led away in handcuffs, their faces a mix of sheer disbelief and terror, was bussin'. It wasn't the sweet, tearful revenge I might have expected. It was cold, clean, and utterly satisfying. They were escorted into separate patrol cars, and my home was officially sealed off as a crime scene. That's definitive proof of possession and intent to destroy evidence, David said, nodding at the laptop screen. The narcotics team found chemical components in those bags. They're in deep water, Mrs. Dawson. The police now have a concrete case for attempted homicide, on top of the chemical charges. We stayed glued to the news feeds. Within an hour, their names were all over the local Phoenix media. Adult siblings arrested in shocking attempted homicide, plot against elderly mother. The news clips showed the police pulling out the gray metal device and the plastic tubing. Their faces were blurry on the screen, but their downfall was crystal clear. The police have everything they need now, I confirmed, finally closing the laptop. The light from the screen had been the only illumination in the apartment. Now for the final step. I need to talk to them. David looked skeptical. Are you sure, Mrs. Dawson? You don't have to face them. You can let the courts handle it. It's risky. Risk is living in a house where your children are slowly poisoning you, David, I countered, a grim resolve settling in my voice. I need them to know that I was never Delulu. I want them to understand that they lost everything because of their own greed. This is my closure. No cap. David arranged for me to meet them separately at the Central Detention Facility, citing urgent family matters before their formal arraignment. I wore a perfectly tailored black suit, my widow's weeds, and applied my favorite shade of red lipstick. I needed to look strong, sharp, and utterly untouchable. First, I faced Jax. He was brought into the sterile visitation room, his face puffy, his eyes red. He had that look of a spoiled kid who'd been caught with his hand in the cookie jar, magnified by 100 times. "Mom!" Thank God. "You're here!" he cried, rushing to the partition glass. "It's all a huge mistake. That plumber guy, Manuel, he set us up. He's sussing things up for some reason." I didn't react. I just leaned into the phone receiver, my eyes meeting his without a flicker of doubt. "Jax, don't waste my time with the lies. I saw the footage. I saw you carry the bags of evidence out of my house." His bravado crumbled instantly. "Mom, please. It was Chloe. She convinced me. She said you were sick anyway, that it was a mercy thing, and that we needed the money for her debt. I didn't want to. You've got to believe me." He was crying now, tears streaming down his face. "A mercy thing?" I asked, my voice dangerously even. "You spent 9 months watching me get weaker, watching me cough, watching me deteriorate and calling it a mercy thing. You handled the renovation, Jax. You set up the ventilation system. You made sure the toxins went straight to my pillow." He looked utterly defeated. "Why did you send the text about the safe? Why did you lie about the new will? You know we don't get the house now, right? It's all gone." I smiled then, a small, chilling smile that didn't reach my eyes. "The safe was open, Jax. I opened it before I left. I wanted you to think I was still the predictable, weak old lady who kept secrets in a dusty box. I wanted you to panic and make a mistake. And you did. No shade, but you fell for the oldest trick in the book." He stared at me, his mouth agape. "The will. The trust. It wasn't real? The trust is real now, Jax. But it's not managed by an attorney. It's managed by me. And I just signed the paperwork today. The beneficiaries are a few local animal shelters, the hospice center that cared for your father, and David Manuel, who saved my life. You and Chloe get absolutely nothing. Not a dime. Not the house. Not the truck. Nothing." His face went pale. He was cooked. "You can't. That's savage." "I learned it from the best, son. Have a nice stay." I hung up the phone and walked out without looking back. Next was Chloe. Chloe was smaller, quieter, and her expression was pure venom. She didn't cry. She just stared at me with an intense, burning hate. "You really came here to gloat, Mom? You really think you won?" "I came here to clarify a few things, sweetie," I said, leaning in. "You had the chemical knowledge. I checked your college records. No cap. You were brilliant. You could have done anything. But you chose to use that brilliant mind to create a slow-acting poison for the woman who spent every single cent she had on your education." "You wouldn't let me grow up," she hissed. "You smothered me. You treated me like a child. We needed the money, and you were wasting away anyway. It was a kindness. A kindness that required you to clean out the poison delivery system moments, before the police arrived and then get caught with the evidence? That wasn't kindness, Chloe. That was mid-planning." I paused, letting my words sink in. "You were living in my house, pretending to grieve your divorce, all while you were making me sick. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the weight loss, the dark circles, the tiredness, that never touched you or Jax?" She looked down, finally defeated. "I called my lawyer this morning, Chloe," I continued. "I am officially filing a civil suit against both of you for emotional distress, attempted murder, and the destruction of my property. I will ensure every cent of your future earnings goes to me, and then to the charities I listed. You will never, ever be debt-free. You will never be free. No cap." I stood up, adjusting the lapels of my jacket. "You wanted my house, my life, and my money. You get nothing. You get the knowledge that you failed, that this old, weak woman outsmarted you and set you up with your own greed. That's your inheritance." I walked to the door, paused, and looked back at her hate-filled eyes. "And one more thing, my sweet Pookie," I said, my voice dripping with honeyed malice. "The new lock on the front door, it's keycard access only. You're never setting foot in my home again." I left her there, staring through the glass, her Roman Empire crumbling around her. Outside, David was waiting, his expression respectful. "Where to now, Mrs. Dawson?" he asked. I smiled, feeling the phoenix sun on my face. The world felt vibrant again. "Take me to the nearest bank, David. I need to open a new account and then call a contractor. That basement needs a total renovation. Every inch of that pipework, every inch of that duct is coming out. We're going to build a new life, clean and strong. And then, we're going on a much-needed vacation, somewhere dope.